Good morning and welcome everybody to the June 10th Teacher Advisory Council meeting. Welcome to all of our TAC members and guests. I'm excited to have you all here with us today. As you can tell, I am not Melanie. She is unable to join us today. So as you may remember, my name is Justin Edwards. I am the liaison for the TAC group. And I do want to remind everybody before we really get too far going, all TAC members and all presenters, please have your cameras on for the duration of any time that you are presenting with us or part of the meeting. So with that in mind, here is the link to our TAC webpage where you can find all of our stuff, be it the agendas, presentations, anything that you need TAC related. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our welcome today. So unfortunately, Dr. Woods Tucker was unable to make it to join us this morning. So we do have Crystal Rowland. She is Division Director here at Kentucky Department of Education. Crystal, if you would for us, please.
Thank you, Justin. And if you would indulge me, I would love to be able to share some slides with you this morning. There we go. So Dr. Woods Tucker unfortunately couldn't join us this morning, but he asked me to share on his behalf. He had a very important personal commitment. And as you see on the screen, his grandson just graduated from preschool or from kindergarten. And so he asked me to share that on his behalf. And when he was talking with me, he said, make sure you communicate to our members of the Teachers Advisory Council just how much we appreciate the work that they do each and every day, as they impact our students and our families and our communities through the work that they do in classrooms each and every day. And as I was thinking about it, I also want to take a moment as we sort of close the chapter on this school year to think about how important it is as you head into summer break to truly take time to care for yourself, just as well as you have your students this year. And so I reached out to artificial intelligence to support me in communicating with you today about the importance, the impact that you make, but also the importance of self-care. And AI did not disappoint. AI told me that teachers are gardeners. Teachers grow minds, dreams, and confidence. Teachers water their students with knowledge, pull out weeds of doubt, and give sunshine through encouragement. And I appreciated this metaphor as a former elementary educator because my second graders, that's where my heart lives, is in my second grade classroom. And they truly grew so much over the years, socially, academically, and also physically. But I realized this was kind of flowery. So I reached out to AI again and said, give me another metaphor. And the bots did not disappoint. So the bot said, teachers are lighthouses. They guide, protect, and light the way for others, even when the seas are rough. And I appreciated this so much because we know that this year has been rough sailing for many of our districts, schools, and communities. And even with the flooding and the tornadoes and other local challenges, we know that teachers have been there guiding the way for their students, even when those things have impacted them personally, their children and their families as well. And so we appreciate that importance that you serve in that way. But even lighthouses need care. Their lights need tending. Their foundations need rest. Because when you shine bright, you help find the way for others. So I asked for another metaphor from AI, and it told me that teachers are batteries, which I felt really missed the mark, and it felt really too cold. So in a final request, I asked for something warmer and got this analogy. Teachers are like campfires. They bring warmth, light, and a sense of belonging to everyone around them. They spark curiosity, fuel imagination, and help others feel seen and safe. And I see this in my educator colleagues, in my teaching besties, and those that I have entrusted my children with in Kentucky Public Schools for nearly a decade and a half. Those that shared their sparks with my kids and that have left warm memories behind. But even the brightest campfire needs time to rest, to be gently tended, to gather new wood. This summer, tend your fire, rest, reflect, reconnect with what makes you glow, because when your fire is strong, it lights the way for so many others. So I'd love to pause a moment, and if you want to come off mute or drop in the chat, if one of these metaphors or analogies really resonated with you, or if there's one that we didn't talk about today that you feel like really shows the importance of educators and also the importance of taking care of yourself.
Hey, this is Kevin Daly. Sorry, I'm in my car driving. I am at a stoplight. Not anymore. Sorry. So, I mean, all of these analogies are fine. They feel weirdly hollow, being like AI generated. Like they feel very impersonal, and like I don't know. I agree that self-care and taking care of yourself over the summer and recharging is great. It just I don't know. They kind of lacked warmth for me.
And I guess that's where I would love for you to kind of chime in. Is there a different metaphor that really resonates with your experience in education?
Maybe not even a metaphor, maybe just like concrete examples of
Yes.
like what impact teachers are making. Like Mandy Perez is on this call, and Mandy, like, she sparks creativity and genius in her students. And that is, I mean, she's a wildfire just waiting to happen. I guess that's a metaphor, but it's personal and concrete. And it's like that part of like reaching out and getting to know the people on this call. Shane Baker is a beacon of positivity. You could call him a lighthouse, but it just means more when you attach a name to it, when you attach a concrete action to it. I got to see Shane over the spring at a conference presenting about classroom management styles, and it was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And he teaches elementary school and I teach middle school. But I was changed after leaving that. So I don't know. It's that like personal connection, I think, like really drives the metaphor. But
Absolutely. It's what you make of the comparison. And I love those examples that you shared, and not just the fire in the classroom, but really pouring into each other and colleagues. Anyone else? Well, regardless of which of these metaphors resonated with you, or the people that sort of came to mind as really pouring into the community and really supporting you as an educator, I hope that the message really resonates with you, that we appreciate everything that you do in the classroom and the impact that you make. And also hope that you take time this summer to recharge and to do those things that really spark joy for you during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. So we are going to get back to our presentation, and our next item on the agenda is, sorry, it's pulling up for me, everybody. Is our roll call of members. So whenever you hear your name, please unmute yourself and tell me that you are here. So first up, we have Melanie Callahan from Laurel County. Chad Davidson from McCracken County. Carla Criswell from Jefferson
Here.
County.
Present.
Becky Spies from Kentucky School for the Blind. Tony Prater, Kentucky School for the Deaf. Rosa Cubero Hurley, Fayette County. Carla Lawson, Whitley County.
Here.
Mandy Perez, Crittenden County.
Here.
Kevin Daly, Boone County.
Present.
Awesome. Kristen Morgan, Danville Independent.
Present.
Corey Burns, Mercer County.
Present.
Sarah Lizer, Fayette County.
Present.
Casey Page, Shelby County. Brooke Leffingwell, Campbell County. Megan Hall, Letcher County.
Present.
Joseph Stivers, Jefferson County.
Good morning, present.
Emmanuel Anama Green, Harlan County.
Present.
Wendy Young, Fayette County.
Present. Morning.
Good morning. Dick Schaffner, Middlesboro Independent. Jessica Hobson, Christian County. Shane Baker, Warren County.
Present.
And last but not least, Scott Bratcher, Breckenridge County.
I'm here.
Great. So our next item up for today is to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Wendy Young, motion to approve.
And do I have a second?
Megan Hall, I
This is
second.
Kristen
the motion.
Morgan.
We definitely have a second. I'm not sure who though. And then all those in agreement say aye, opposed say nay. So agreed,
Aye.
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 opposed. Good deal. Next up is we need to approve the minutes from last meeting. So same deal, I need a motion.
Kristen Morgan, I move that we accept the minutes from our last meeting.
All right, do I have a second?
Megan Hall, I second the motion.
And same deal. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say nay. All right, so that brings us to our next presentation that I have for you all today. We have a great presentation on exploring the portraits of a learner and defense of learning. This is coming to us from Rob Collins from Innovative Programs and from Robert Meacham in the Division of Innovation and Programs. So do I have one of the Robs on the call for me?
Rob Squared is here and ready to go.
That's right.
Awesome.
We're both there.
All righty, I'll start sharing if that's, oh, okay.
I got you.
Oh, look at you. Okay, sorry, then I'll stop sharing if you've got it. Or, I'm sorry, Justin, do you want me to share the screen?
It's okay. I'll get it pulled back up now. No big deal.
Okay.
Coming back.
Sorry. Well, while that's getting pulled up, thank you folks for having us here today. Excited to be here with you. Again, I'll introduce myself really quickly. My name is Dr. Rob Collins. I'm an innovative programs consultant in the Division of Innovation. I'm a former English teacher, and now I manage the Kentucky Innovative Teacher Fellowship. the local laboratories of learning, and also the Kentucky Portrait of a Learner. And I'll pass it off to the other Robert to introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. Robert Meacham. I'm the program manager in the Division of Innovation. So besides Rob's work, we also manage non-traditional instruction. We manage math badging and micro-credentialing. We manage project-based learning. And we also have the work of the Cool Council that is that has the regional innovation specialists that fall within our work. And that's where a lot of the stuff that I'll be talking about comes from our work with the regional innovation specialists that are out in the field. So I'm really thrilled to be able to share this with you today.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll get started. Just a quick note, I go by Rob, like the crime. Meach goes by Robert, like every CPA you've ever met. So we both answer to each though. So yeah, next slide, please. Okay. Oh no. Justin, is it okay if I share this slide? I'm seeing that I may have made a few last minute edits that are only live on my version.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, awesome. It's like slide share hot potato here. I love it. Okay. So our session goals today are pretty simple. First, to share the purpose of a portrait of a learner and its impact on teaching and learning. To discuss defenses of learning as a meaningful assessment practice, and then also to receive some meaningful feedback from this group of amazing teachers. I do want to note that we really came into this with a request of folks wanted to hear more about Portrait of a Learner at the state level and how it's impacting districts and classrooms across the state. And also to get an idea of defenses of learning across the spectrum. So we really are here just to share some information from our perch, and then also to dig into some particulars of any questions or feedback that you may have. I just added this like a second ago after hearing some conversation. We do ask that for this session you show up as your full self. So of course we know that you're educators, you're teachers, but some of you are also parents, some of you are community leaders. Everything that you know and everything you have been is useful in this session, and any feedback from any of those perspectives is useful. And also, we are no stranger to hard questions in the Division of Innovation. So we do ask that if there's something that you really want to push on, please give us that feedback, ask that question. Typically, my third session norm is Chatham House rules or Vegas rules. Of course, we know this is being recorded and that's not possible here, but we still would appreciate your honest and direct feedback. So a quick couple of questions before we begin, and you can just drop these in the chat. If we have a chat, I saw that may have been disabled. The first question is, has your district developed and adopted a Portrait of a Learner? And the second question is, does your district implement defenses of learning? And I'm not sure if we have chat capability or not.
I don't believe that we do.
Okay.
I can answer.
Yes, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I took that to mean you'd answer off mic. That would probably get a little messy. So we'll just have you have this question in your head and think about this as context as we go through the presentation. So first thing I do want to note that the Portrait of a Learner movement has a lot of momentum across the United States and many progressive states across the country that are really rethinking assessment and accountability in the teaching and learning experience have implemented Portraits of a Learner sort of as their inroad to that shift to more competency-based learning. In Kentucky, we do have a K-12 Portrait of a Learner. But we are also working in partnership with the Council for Post-Secondary Education, which really focuses on our higher education institutions. They also have a Kentucky Portrait of a Graduate. And there's really a lot of work that we've done over the past year to align those portraits such that the language is cohesive across the entire P20 spectrum. So just some quick benefits of having a statewide learning framework or a Portrait of a Learner. It communicates the value of education to a wide variety of stakeholders, legislators included, parents, community members. It provides structure and coherence to learning experiences across grade bands. It helps students specifically name and claim knowledge, skills, and dispositions that they're building in their education. So it's not just discrete standards any longer. It's also a wider, broader range of skills that helps them as a human. And it allows employers to understand students' knowledge, skills, and capabilities by the time they leave K-12 or the time they leave their post-secondary education. So this is the Kentucky Portrait of a Learner. As I mentioned, it represents the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that we wish our students to exhibit once they leave us in 12th grade. We have 6 competencies in Kentucky. They're engaged citizen, critical thinker, productive collaborator, effective communicator, creative contributor, and empowered learner. And many of our districts are building really comprehensive performance assessment systems to capture the depth and breadth of the learning in these competencies that students are attaining and demonstrating and reflecting on. I also want to note that even though the Kentucky Board of Education has adopted this portrait of a learner, and it really serves as sort of our guidepost, it has not been mandated. And despite the fact it hasn't been mandated, over 150 of our districts have created their own local portraits of a learner. And most of them have done that in concert with local community members, students, parents, teachers, etc. So we take that as a success, that districts are seeing the value of this work, and we take it as a huge leap, those districts that have really meaningfully incorporated teacher voice, community member voice, and student voice to develop those competencies and develop that full portrait. So this is just a quick smattering of some districts that have developed a portrait. I also want to note that there's a huge range of where people are at in this process. Some are just starting. So just thinking about their competencies and convening a local coalition to develop those competencies. Others have had a portrait for 10 years or more and are really refining their system. This is just really quickly the Kentucky graduate profile for our post-secondary partners. There are 10 essential skills. You can see them here. All 24 community and technical colleges and public universities in Kentucky operate with this framework. And this is just a quick crosswalk of how those frameworks align across K-12 and post-secondary. And I will turn it over to Robert, to discuss how defenses of learning are developing as a meaningful assessment practice to support portraits.
I do appreciate it, Dr. Rob. I do go by Meech. That is, if you call me Meech, it means you're my friend. So you all can do the same. So we're really excited about how portraits have started to grow over time. And like Rob said, we're at 150 districts of varying degrees of kind of completion. Some of them were created out of, obviously many of you know about the Deeper Learning Grant over the last couple of years, and many of our co-ops took the Deeper Learning Grant and really focused on some time and some intention on building those portraits of a learner. So now we've got a lot of schools that have them. Some of them are, that you all have probably experienced initiatives in the past as educators that end up just being posters on the wall. So we have some of those, but then we have others that are really taking this, into what is becoming a really vibrant experience for their students, and especially what Rob mentioned earlier about leading the local labs of learning. Those L3s, specifically have been focused on building like a local accountability system, but before they get to that local accountability system, one of the other things that they've, one of the steps along the way is building those showcases, those exhibitions, those celebrations, or those defenses of learning that you see here. So defenses of learning it's a performance-based assessment. They are at the younger level. What we're seeing, whether it's at the K2 grade band, even in places like Danville, or the fifth and eighth grade places that we've seen like Metcalfe County and And I mean, there's a ton of different examples from across the state. What we're seeing at the younger grade bands, we're seeing those defenses really being focused around competencies that are really portrait. Basically showing how the students are reflecting on how they are, how they're collaborating, how they're being effective communicators, how they're being critical thinkers, and so those younger grade bands are working on defending themselves or growing themselves professionally through defending their competencies. They are being they're working throughout their school years to basically gather evidence and gather artifacts of through their content knowledge. They're gathering evidence that they are then showing how they use their competencies from their community grown portraits to accomplish their content knowledge. So it's really exciting. Then the one of the best parts is some of you, I'm sure, have been a part of being a part of the community feedback or a teacher panel potentially, and where the students are actually standing up there and defending their artifacts in front of a teacher panel in some cases, and other districts. We were in Spencer County just a couple of weeks ago, and their panels are all community members, like many other districts. They have community members that come in to have the students share their learning and share their artifacts. Next slide. So it is meant to be, the defenses are meant to be a culminating experience, but at the outside of those grade bands, it's also happening as you've got even like I had mentioned, there's some even down to the kindergarten level that the little ones are able to do one of those defenses, more or less, but it's really a celebration of their learning, where they are doing a student-led conference. Those would what we would consider a performance assessment, where the student is leading their parents through their culminating event and describing their successes and their competencies. So many districts are dabbling in this, in whether it's one district might just be doing, hey, we're gonna try these defenses at the senior English level this year and see how it takes hold, and they're just kind of planning their next strategic move. That's one of the ways our regional innovation team is going in along with other partners from co-ops to help strategize how to build these systems and to make sure that it's not a requirement all of a sudden put on everybody. It's really it's strategically grown. So we have districts that are starting at the 5th grade level with their first ones, trying to build basically build a foundation of students, so that basically like a cohort model is that that group of students becomes those those students that are going to be the first ones that do it at the 8th grade and the first ones that do it at the 12th grade. And so they're being very strategic with those. So one of the things that we've learned from many of our districts is that all students participate. We hear this for those of you who are familiar with Shelby County's defenses of learning and their defense days. They make it and they're just one of many, but they make it meaningful for every student. That's students from all diverse backgrounds. If they have English as a second language, they actually have the opportunity to present their defense in their native tongue to native speakers as well, so that they can really showcase their competencies. So that we have. What's really exciting is as we have gone on through this year, we had many examples last spring of defenses of learning that were exciting, and this spring it's even more. Many of your districts, when I saw the roll call, I was like, okay, I know this district, because we're seeing those defenses, those exhibitions and those showcases happening in your districts, maybe in some pockets, or maybe throughout your system. Next slide. All right, so based on that we're trying to keep it, and actually we're doing pretty good on time, so we've got some time for questions. If we've presented something that kind of made you say, I wonder about this, or how is it happening in my district, or what could we possibly provide information to help you understand better, we'd love to take your questions.
Hi, I have a question. This is Megan Hall from Letcher County. I saw that the grades are 5th and 8th and then 12th. So my concern is, once this is mandated, how is this going to go along with the state testing? Because I teach 5th grade, and our poor kids, we've spent 6 or 7 days testing them. So this kind of seems one more thing and one more high stakes that our kids have to do and have to. So will the testing be phased out, and this is actually more than what we're going to, or is this, and I hate to say it, but like one more thing that our kids have to go to? And I get, like, our students need to be well-rounded. I do. And I just, like I said, it's already a lot of high stakes and a lot of high pressure for my 5th grade kids.
That's an excellent question. Let me put your mind at ease first. So with the new framework, these defenses are not the mandated are not mandated portions. What they are is these would be a part of the local accountability option, basically like the choice option. So what we're showing you in 5th, 8th, and 12th is that ends up being where many schools are finding success of basically being like a culminating kind of a transition check, kind of like a transition check, but not the conversation with the school council and with the assessment and accountability is not that defenses will be mandated by any means. However, we do have districts that are mandating it from their board. You have like districts like Shelby County and Spencer County that I can think of right off the top of my head. Their local board of education has said to graduate, these students are going to do a defensive learning, not as a not necessarily as a 5th and 8th grade requirement, but so that it is going to be a local decision about how how defenses are used. One of the easy ways that folks are doing it is specifically with social studies as a local option for assessing social studies. Some of these defenses are being used as an accountability, a local accountability for their social studies assessment. That's just one example, and there are other states doing that. So I don't think you have to worry that this is going to be mandated, that every kid across the state is going to, that the state is going to say you're going to have to do a defense, but it is going to say, hey, here's a best practice that you can do to show that your students are meeting the competencies of your portrait. And so that's hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
May I jump in for a moment on that note? Just a quick piece. One, I want to totally affirm that we hear your concerns about the burden of testing, especially on our kids. One thing I do want to note is that as we think about portrait of a learner and defenses of learning, it really necessitates a change in our pedagogy and the vibrancy of the way that we are teaching and building learning experiences for our students. So we can't expect that a portrait or defense of learning system would be put in place and the way that we teach is the same way we teach to the test, right? If you do that, you're just going to get flat defenses of learning. And defenses are probably the best litmus test for how vibrant your learning experiences are and how authentic and meaningful they are for students. So I do want to put a plug in there that we understand that tension, and it does feel very much sometimes like you're playing two games, right? The KSA game and then the meaningful experience game. We really want to put all our eggs in the basket of actually what's best for students is a vibrant learning experience that connects them to community, that feels authentic to them, that has them using their critical thinking skills to dig into a problem of practice or a localized problem. And I just had to note that I don't think we said that enough in the actual presentation piece, but it is important that pedagogy shifts as well. And we are
I-
really thinking about how that happens.
Yeah, I agree totally that, I mean, that's how we should be teaching students is to be prepared for life and obstacles and public speaking. But it will be hard to make sure though that also like we are, I mean, like you said, I'll say that you said this teaching to the test. And so it's going to be hard to balance the two of those to make sure we're covering all of our bases
Yes, totally understood.
and funding, right? Do y'all
Megan,
have money?
I'm really glad that you brought that question up. So at Bally, we do defensive learning building wide in 8th grade. And in 8th grade this year, they had 5 days of state testing, plus the week prior they did district testing. It's insane. It's an insane burden to place on kids. And it really does actually hurt their learning. Not only does it give us skewed and ineffective results, but it actually it harms kids because of the stress, the undue stress and burden that it places on them. I actually really love the defensive learning model. This year, so I've been a social studies teacher my whole career, and this year I moved to an elective course or unified arts course or whatever specials course, whatever grade level you teach in. And this has been a way for that course to mean something. Like my course rules, the kids love it. They love all their special classes. But it makes it to where there are some stakes to keep kids involved in the projects that we do. And at the end of every project, they have to prepare and add to their website in their defensive learning, how did this contribute to your communication, collaboration, critical thinking, global citizenship? How did it do that? And they have to actually write that out. And for me, that's a way more effective measure of assessment. I think the Roberts would probably agree with that. I hope, fingers crossed, that they would also agree that it's more effective. But I do want to push a little and add to what Megan is saying, because what ends up happening is when, like, I mean, we had 250 kids do a defensive learning in front of community members and school personnel and whatever. And I wonder, is that presentation adding to their learning? Is it increasing their learning? I asked the same question about state assessments, and the answer is resoundingly, in my opinion, no, it does not. But I wonder how effective this is at increasing learning, not just as a way for us to judge the kids, but for the kids to move forward and grow, because truthfully, that's what I care about as a classroom teacher. I don't care about assessment, I care about learning. And so how is this contributing to that learning? What are there any measures, statistics, data that you have for that? I know it's early, but.
You're muted, Rob.
Sorry, I have like a podcast mic that I muted. Anyway, I'll start and then I'll let Meech jump in. I think there are a couple useful frameworks. So I would say, in my perspective, there's a range of quality of defense. And typically it is indicative of the vibrancy of the learning experiences in the classroom, whether they're more traditional or more authentic and project-based. I think defenses absolutely can function as assessment for learning, not just to surface learning. And I think that where defenses really shine is having students engage in that metacognitive analysis of how do I learn, what have I learned, and how do I demonstrate that? And what does that show of me as a human building skills, and also me as someone engaging in academic learning and content. I think that framing of the usefulness of reflection and metacognition is the purpose of a defense. I don't think that a defense is used to have a huge depth of like content knowledge learning. It really is more that summative event of bringing the student back to, okay, this is what I've done, and this is how I analyze it for myself, and sort of demonstrate that I know what I've learned and how I've learned it and who I've become as a result of that. I hope that answered your question, Kevin. I'm not sure it did, but that's the way I would approach it.
No, you hit exactly what I was going to say, Rob. Is that metacognitive focus is where the districts that are making this a focus is where they're seeing success, is where that is the focus.
If that didn't hit the nail on the head, remember, we love the hard questions, so feel free to keep pushing, but we'll take other questions too. I
want to give everybody else a chance. I put a comment in the chat, and it's really just affirming Megan's initial, I think what I heard Megan say in her initial question as well. But thank you guys.
Thank you. I'm not going to do the popcorn thing. So if anyone just wants to come off the mic, and we'll take another question. And I think, Justin, do we have time for one more, or where are we at on time?
Sure, you can have one more.
Okay, we'll take our one more.
I have one more. I have a question. So when the students are presenting, are they presenting all the different portraits, or do they or areas, or do they just focus on just one?
So that's a good question, that really it varies based on grade band that they're at. It also varies based on the student's ability level and if the diversity of their learning experience. I've seen some at Woodford County where a student was really comfortable with one of the competencies, and so that was one of the accommodations that was provided. Is they provided a defense for the one competency, and it was quality, and so that's another thing. Since this is a locally built system, it's very flexible to the individual needs of the student, and obviously the work that the teachers are doing with those students are able to make other assessments of that student's ability on the other competencies. So it really is very flexible.
Thank you, because it won't, because teachers, as I think one person said, Ms. Hall said, one more thing. If I can only do one competency, that would not be like overwhelming as a teacher. Right. So thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you, Rob and Robert. We really appreciate you all coming and speaking to us today. And I'm sure if anybody has any questions, they will email me or you. Thank you all. So up next, our next presentation will be on the Kentucky United We Learn Framework 4.0. And for that, we have Shara Savage, the Education Administration Program Manager from the Office of Assessment and Accountability. So Shara.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
You advance this slide. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. So good morning, everyone. As Justin said, I'm Shara Savage, the Education Administration Program Manager with the Division of Assessment and Accountability Support. I was listening to a lot of your questions with the first presentation. So maybe some of the questions can be answered with this presentation here, because today we're going to be diving into an overall view of the Model Framework 4.0. This version builds on the foundations established in previous frameworks. We have included valuable feedback from our town halls and site visits and district partners across the Commonwealth. So let's get started here. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at what's changed as we move from Model Framework 3.0 to 4.0. First, the new framework shifts from using federal accountability indicators to state accountability indicators that meet federal accountability. This adjustment assures alignment with the federal requirements while giving Kentucky more flexibility to shape a system that reflects our local priorities and needs. Additionally, there's an update in the technical documentation regarding social studies and writing assessments. Districts are encouraged to take a more localized approach, developing and administering their own competency-based or authentic measures for social studies. However, if a district prefers not to design their own, they still have the option to use the state-provided assessments. These assessments would only need to be administered once per grade band. So once in elementary, middle, and high school, specifically in grades 5, 8, and 10. This reflects a continued effort to balance consistency and flexibility while promoting meaningful, locally relevant assessments. Next slide, please. As we look towards the future of assessments and accountability in Kentucky, we are guided by the Kentucky United We Learn Council's Moonshot. This vision challenges us to launch an accountability system that is both meaningful and useful for all of our learners. On the left side of the chart, you'll see what systems have traditionally been prioritized. We've historically focused on standardization with the same tests for all subjects and instruction closely aligned with testing, offering little flexibility. Systems emphasized comparison, often using color ratings and limiting collaboration. Control was centralized at the state level, and compliance serving as the driving force, aiming to meet state and federal requirements while offering limited local adaptability. But moving forward, we envision a different approach. We want to embrace vibrant learning where students have input and can demonstrate their knowledge in diverse ways. Assessments will be designed to meet students where they are. We'll foster collaboration, encouraging partners among districts and communities, and eliminating outdated ranking systems such as the color ratings. Local innovation would be supported, enabling communities to design accountability systems that reflect their unique values while still maintaining alignment with key state requirements. And finally, instead of compliance-driven efforts, we will emphasize feedback and support. All schools will receive peer and expert input to drive meaningful improvement with local flexibility and data guiding tailored support. This shift represents a bold but necessary move, one that aligns our systems with what truly matters for students, educators, and communities. Next slide, please. So let's take a moment to explore what a truly balanced accountability system could look like in Kentucky. At the core of our vision is the idea that accountability should reflect both local priorities and federal requirements. This graphic shows how we can achieve that balance. On the left, you'll see the local accountability indicators. These provide flexibility for schools and districts. Local indicators could include interim assessments in reading and math, off-grade science testing, and locally determined measures. Additionally, there are required components like vibrant learning experiences, writing, social studies, but districts can choose how to implement them based on local context and needs. On the right, we have the state accountability indicators which meet federal requirements. These include summative performance in reading and math, individual student growth, transition readiness, graduation rate, English language progress, and the climate and safety survey. You will notice that science is included. This must use a statewide measure, but districts can add their own locally developed components for local accountability. The graphic in the center represents the harmony between these two areas. Neither can stand alone. Instead, that they're designed, excuse me, to work together, ensuring, excuse me, I'm so sorry, ensuring consistencies where required, while honoring local flexibility and innovation. Together, these components support Kentucky's portrait of the learner and promote continuous improvement and fosters more personalized, student-centered experience across our schools. Next slide, please. So let's take a look at the phased approach Kentucky is using to support districts in designing and implementing local accountability systems. This three-phased model is built with flexibility and support in mind, allowing districts to grow their systems thoughtfully and with sustainability. So the first is the pilot phase, which we are currently in. This phase is already underway with representative groups from districts leading the work. These districts are actively designing and implementing their local accountability systems, focusing on districts with key components, gathering feedback, identifying potential changes, and refining the process. Next, after we have legislative approval, we would start the next phase in expansion, the expansion phase. Once we have the insights and lessons learned from pilot districts and legislators, the goal is to expand to move to more districts across the state. This phase involves increased investment in professional learning and the development of strong community practice. Finally, the sustainability phase. At this stage, the goal is to scale successful local accountability systems across Kentucky. In this phase, we will see active network supporting ongoing shared learning, system evaluation, and continuous improvement. The idea is to create a cycle of progress where districts not only implement systems, but also continue refining them to a better serve students over time. Together, these phases reflect our commitment to meaningful, student-centered accountability that evolves with local context and experience. Next slide, please. So as we look ahead towards our reimagined accountability system, this visual represents our shared journey, a journey to something bold and meaningful for Kentucky learners. Our moonshot is clear: to build a prosperous Kentucky. We will launch an accountability system that is meaningful and useful to all of our learners. That mission guides the entire process outlined here. So at this point, I'll stop and take some questions. But before we take any questions, the thing that I'll leave here is, as we approach summer 2025, the focus is shift to a broader communication support from legislators preparing for the ultimate goal, and that goal of having a meaningful system by 2026. So thank you very much. And if you all have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them now.
Emmanuel, is your hand up to ask a question?
Yeah, I was just impressed. I think it looks like a great program on paper here. What do we anticipate it looking like when it's actually in the classroom later on the road, next year and so forth? And have there been any other states that implemented a similar program that we can kind of look for guidance and examples and some best practices and so forth?
Well, so to start off with your question, other states are doing something similar. There, some states, just right off the top of my head, are using a through year assessment model. So there are other states doing some things similar here. Now, what exactly it will end up looking like, that will be based off of what legislators approve in the spring of 2026. So sorry, I couldn't give you more. We just don't really know what direction that they'll take us.
I mean, that's good. That's good kind of guiding posts there to kind of look forward to. And it gives us a good basis too, I think, to kind of see what we can kind of aim for too. And the competency, I'm all for the competency as well. So that seems really exciting to see what that looks like in the long term.
I could barely hear you, but it sounded like it was a compliment, but I couldn't hear exactly what you're saying. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, my name is Megan. I guess I'm the question queen today.
That's okay.
So, like right now, it takes quite a large amount of time to get results back from the testing. So on one of the slides, it said more immediate feedback. Is this something with this framework so we neighbor Virginia, and as soon as they take their test, they get immediate results. Is that something that we could see with this instead of having to wait so long? Because I think that makes it hard for testing too for the kids, is the feedback isn't immediate. And as teachers, we're told, give immediate feedback. That way we can start at that point and continue on. And I think it would give more purpose to the test as well for students to know, like, I want to work hard today because my score counts for me today, and I want to see that, not 6 months down the road. I think, and then, so for the state level, vibrant learning will be required, or the local level, I'm sorry. Will districts receive funding for that pending legislation, or will that be we pray, but we still need to do this? So I think that will have to be looked at to aligned, because like I'm the drama coach, but I do it for free. And, we are providing these experiences, but me and my coworker alone have spent $2,000 of our own money to provide those experiences. So I think that funding is going to have to be assessed for it to all work.
And so, Megan, you are exactly right. Funding is a question that we will have to take to legislators. And your first part of your statements was about getting assessments, getting scores back quicker, and that is we've heard that across the board. It's something that we are definitely looking into, and sure that we sure hope that we can provide that. But no, it is something that we are looking into about getting those scores back sooner for you, for the districts and schools, most certainly. So I think I answered all your parts of your question, Megan. Thanks.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, this is Corey Burns from Mercer County. On the slide, that says going forward under vibrant learning, it says that the state assessments are going to meet students where they are. Can you talk a little bit more about what that will look like?
The local accountability piece is where they'll meet where they are. The state, the summative test, that will continue to remain the same. So those, the local pieces will be more where they'll meet the student where they are. Any other questions? Really good questions today.
This is Wendy Young from Fayette County. So what I'm hearing you say is we will still take the state assessment as we've been taking it, but what we will, go ahead.
So what we're proposing, I didn't mean to interrupt you. What we're proposing is that the summative performance in reading and math would stay similar. But you'd have some flexibilities in some of the others. If we could go back to a couple of slides to the one more, yeah, maybe this will help. So you would take some intern assessments in reading and math. You could test off grade in science if you chose to. The writing and the social studies is where some flexibility comes in. It's required with some different options. You can use a local piece, or you could still opt into the state assessment. So there's where you have some flexibility.
Good morning. Good morning. Sorry about that. Okay, so my concern would be the required with options with writing and social studies. The districts that don't have a large maybe budget may cut those content areas because now it's required, but you have other options. So is that something that teachers were afraid of with this new accountability piece, that they may not offer those classes at all grade level or do some kind of restructuring of that because it's not mandated to take the state assessment? You can kind of do your own options with that. I came from the writing portfolio when I was younger, where you had to do 5 pieces and your teachers went to the library.
Yes.
Portfolio. And so is that another option, looking at going back to that kind of piece to assess writing?
Well, it would be, it would be a local decision if they chose whatever option they would choose for writing. It's just required with options. But yes, we have heard concerns about, things being cut when it's not required and so forth and so on. So those concerns have been raised. Yes. And, again, this is something that we're proposing to legislators, but they will, weigh in and have their thoughts included in it as well. So there is more to come on this. Any other questions?
All right. Well, if there's no other questions for Shara, thank you very much for coming to present to us. I imagine if anybody has any questions that comes up to their mind after this meeting's over, they can definitely email you.
Yes, most certainly. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. All right, so that brings us to our next presentation. So our next presentation will be coming to us on teacher emotional well-being and will be brought to us from Ellie Gilbert. She is the Assistant Director in the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness. Ellie?
Hello, everybody. Excited to be with you today to talk about one of my favorite things that I'm hoping will soon become one of your favorite things, and that is the Impact Kentucky Survey. I am the guru of all things impact, and I love it, and I want to evangelize a little bit about it. So I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about what we found in the last administration of the survey regarding teacher well-being and maybe how we can use that data on a local level to improve our schools. So yeah, you can go on to the next slide. So there's always this lovely question, and then it is typically the lowest of all of our survey responses, the lowest in positive rating. How concerned are you about the emotional well-being of your colleagues as a result of their work? And only 34% of people said, I'm not concerned about them at all, or I'm only a little concerned about them. Most people were very concerned. And the same for yourself, 44% responded favorably. Now, those are low numbers, but if you look, those are also increased over the 2021-22 survey cycle. So things apparently might be getting better for teachers. I don't know that that's always what I hear from my friends who are teachers, but that's what the survey says. So I don't usually advocate for looking at the survey results as a statewide average because this is a building level survey of working conditions. So looking at that, it just tells us that there's a trend that emotional well-being is low, but we already kind of knew that anyway. So if you want to go on to the next slide. I dug around just a little bit to think about what influences teachers' emotional well-being. In no particular order, even though I should have just bulleted them, but in no particular order. Positive interpersonal relationships with colleagues. You like the people that you work with. Your workload influences that. The school culture influences that. The amount of resources and the quality of resources that you have influences that. And of course, I think maybe above all, the administrative support influences the emotional well-being. So we know those things. There are lots of different strategies that people will talk about. You know, there's not a silver bullet. There's not a program that we can purchase that we can implement in our schools that's going to just fix things for teachers. So if you want to go to the next slide, I decided to look at the school that had the highest rate of positive results on this question. So in the 4 questions that fall in this, how effective do you feel at your job right now? And Hazard Independent, which is a small Eastern Kentucky district, they had 92% of their teachers responding favorably to that. And that's an increase. In the one that is so low for everyone, how concerned are you about the emotional well-being of your colleagues? 72% of them responded favorably, and that's a huge jump for them as well. In the one about your own well-being, 73%. And then overall, how much do you feel like you belong at your school is 91%. So I have a good friend that I grew up with who has spent his whole career in Hazard Independent. So I called him up and was really glad to get to reconnect with him. And I said, so what's the secret sauce in Hazard? Why are you guys so happy? And so I think if you'll go to the next slide, here are some of the things that he had to say to me. What sets Hazard apart? The first thing he said was that they were tightly connected. It is a small district, but also if you look at the Impact Kentucky survey results and you flip it and look at the lowest scores in that, the lowest positive ratings, they were also small districts. So that's not it's not the defining factor. It's not just that it's a small district, but that they are tightly connected. And he said, when one person is dealing with something, we all are. And he said that applied to staff as well as students. He talked about all the different disasters that they've had, flooding. They've had 2 different bouts of really bad flooding, things like that have really drawn their community closer together. He said that they refer to themselves as a family, and I've heard that in other schools as well, but he says it really does apply there. He talked about how they had a family lose their home in a fire just a few days before Christmas, and the students initiated, but the teachers supported, and they provided dinner and gifts for that family. And so everyone sort of takes ownership of everyone else's needs. So that was one thing that he thought really sets them apart. And then I asked him, so how's your administration? Is it stable? Do you I know schools that get a new principal every year. He's like, nope, we don't do that. We stick with our administration. We stick with our superintendent. Things kind of go long term. And he said he thought that in terms of job openings in general, there were only a few each year, maybe 4 or 5 each year. So none of those are answers as to why they're doing so well, but they're just more evidence of how well that they're doing. I think, is there next? I can't remember if there's another slide. Yeah. So I wanted to know, we can't magically can or box that up and send that out to schools and say, here's your school culture toolkit, implement this and everybody will be happy. But what do you see that works in your school and district that maybe is important, or have you seen maybe that doesn't work so well? So that's what I just wanted to open it up. I'm just kind of interested in hearing from you. I'm always looking at these impact results and trying to figure out the why behind them. And so I really enjoyed getting to investigate this a little bit more. I talked to a couple of people from other schools and their answers were very similar to those. So I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. So if you want to just come off mute or if you want to post in the chat. Well, I will just say, as we take this survey coming up again in the fall of this year, get excited. This is one way that I encourage you to use the results, look at your own schools, and then look at schools that maybe are similar to you, and see how they're doing and see what their secrets are. There's, again, not a silver bullet that just fixes all of the problems for teachers. But there are schools that are doing good things, that have good things in practice that we can implement in every school in their own certain way. So I just wanted to put that plug in for that. Be looking for that in the very first few weeks of school. We'll be looking for building coordinators, and we will get that sign up started. The window will be November 10th through December 19th this year. So another thing is that Panorama does provide us with resources. You just need to create an account, and there's a playbook. And I think in that playbook there, oh, if you want to go to the next slide, it shows you where the playbook is. So the playbook is at the bottom. After you look at the results, you can go to the next slide. And this is just kind of when I pulled up climate and adults were the target. This is just a little bit of the resources there. People rate them and give comments on them, so you can decide if you want to use them based on how well other people, how effective they've been for other people. Some of them are very simple. Some are a little bit more elaborate. They have them to use in your schools with students too, so you can just play with that toolkit. It's free. Panorama provides it to everyone who has an account, and anyone can have one. So next slide. If you have questions, this is my contact information. I'm glad to talk at any point about Impact Kentucky and how we can use those survey results to improve your school and to make life a little bit better for you.
All right, well, thank you, Ellie. I appreciate you coming and giving us your time and speaking on this. Like she said, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to Ellie and send her an email. And that brings us to our next presentation, which is legislative updates with Brian Perry, the Director of Government Relations here at KDE.
All right, next slide. One more. There we go. So following every session, we release non-regulatory guidance. That's posted at the link there. There is a centralized page now for all of our legislative guidance. So if you ever need to find something from a past session, it's all archived there as well. In the past, we've done sort of two rounds. We did the emergency bills first, so the bills that went into effect immediately, and then released guidance on the rest later. The past couple of sessions, we've just done one general document. That'll be followed up by more specific guidance on individual bills as needed. So in the next few months, you'll see more things get posted for specific bills. So please take a look at the guidance if you haven't already. It's very helpful. Our staff worked real hard on it to get it out there quickly. And then finally, just any bill that did not have an emergency clause for all or part of it, or an otherwise effective dates. There are a number of bills that have a delayed effective date or a year or more. The rest will go into effect June 27th. So with that said, we'll move right along. Please feel free to jump in at any point. I do this a lot this time of year, so feel free to jump in with any questions. That said, I will probably not touch on every single bill. that passed. We'll try to hit some highlights. I will say that this was another busy session. We flagged, I think, over 200 bills out of the gate. So bills that we thought could have an impact on education in some shape, form, or fashion. Most of those don't go anywhere. They're essentially dead on arrival, but we still have to flag them and review them. And so then we track a whole lot more and provide a lot of feedback to members as the session moves forward. So we'll start with the Senate bills. Just as a reminder, there's a lot less Senate bills than House bills because we have 38 senators versus 100 House members. So if you're wondering why one group is smaller, that's why. So Senate Bill 9 will definitely impact teachers. This will require districts to put a policy in place to provide at least 30 maternity day, paid maternity leave days for teachers in the district by June 1st of 2030. So got some time to implement this one, but very excited to see that one get through, as I'm sure a lot of you will be as well. It also made some changes to TRS's sick leave and how that can be, I guess, paid out. We don't do a whole lot with the TRS bills, but I can try to field questions if you have them on that one. Senate Bill 19 is the first of a number of bills that are actually two bills in one. So as the session progresses, especially as we get near the end, the clock is ticking. We often see bills get rolled into each other, and this is the first one of those. So it's first half just moves from permissive moment of silence to start the day to a required moment of silence to start the day. And then the second half moves to allow moral instruction for up to 1 hour a week for students and their families that choose to do that. It does create a new reporting requirement for districts to report any entities that have applied to provide moral instruction and what action the board took on them. We are working to put that into Infinite Campus, but that has not been finalized yet. So we'll make sure the districts are aware of that as the deadline approaches for, it calls for quarterly reports. So we may ask for some cleanup language on that one. If it's going to be an IC, we don't really need a quarterly report from districts. Senate Bill 18 was a bit of a cleanup bill. I don't know that there's a lot in there directly related to teachers. It does get rid of another reporting requirement. We tried to get rid of a couple of reporting requirements, and that was the only one that we got done this go around. So we'll continue to try to reduce that burden on districts. Senate Bill 73 was one of a couple of bills that we had sort of related to this broader topic of misconduct. I just always point out to folks when I do these that the commissioner, myself, other folks that interact with the legislature from KDE really make a point of emphasizing that these sort of misconduct bills are really for the vast minority of teachers in our districts. The overwhelming majority of our teachers are excellent, really focused on the safety and well-being of our students. So just want to make sure that I emphasize that we are carrying that message to your members in the General Assembly. But 73 is related to sexual extortion, requires a few different things of districts, like putting up posters and making students a little more aware at a grade level appropriate manner about sexual extortion. Senate Bill 120 is similarly themed. It makes some changes to the required forms that coaches, volunteers, others that work with students in the sports world have to do. So moving on to Senate Bill 207. So this is one that makes some big changes. So first, again, this is a 2-in-1 bill. So the 207 originally moves us from districts of innovations down to the school level of innovation. So now districts can tag individual schools within the district with the innovative tag, and that allows for waivers through the KBE. I think the biggest one of those that might be of interest to you all is it does allow for waiving, I think, 10% of teachers having Kentucky certification. So not sure that it makes a lot of other changes in terms of the types of innovations that are available. It just moves them down to the school level so you can tag, a district can have those innovative practices for just a single school, not the entire district. The second half of 207 may even be a bigger change as we move forward. So as you all are, I'm sure, aware, we've had a state textbook commission on the books for decades. However, it has not been funded since around 2017 and hasn't met since then. In the preceding years, since it was has not been funded, the Office of Teaching and Learning has kind of moved forward and kind of reimagined what that state textbook commission looked like. They convened a quality curriculum task force to, I guess, adapt to the changing times and the fact that we don't really use textbooks anymore. We use online instructional resources and those sorts of things. That all gets codified in the second half of 207. So we have officially moving away from the state textbook commission and moving to the quality curriculum task force. That group will work to identify HQIRs for the core areas. Those will then be put in this new online repository that 207 directs us to work with a vendor to get up and running. That repository will house all of the HQIRs that the district selects, make them available to stakeholders like parents, community members, that sort of thing. It also will allow us to tie test results back to particular HQIRs. That could be important if a district decides to do an off notification HQIR, and we can kind of see what those results are. So that all doesn't go in, none of that goes into effect until July 1 of next year. So some time to implement that. There will definitely be some supplemental guidance coming out about these changes in 207 as it relates to HQIRs in this new process for districts. So be aware of that. Not totally surprising. We've had a lot of conversations about HQIRs as we have talked about early literacy and numeracy the past few sessions. So this all happened pretty fast at the end of the session. We saw a couple of bills get introduced around this topic earlier in the session, and this is where it landed. So that was maybe one of the more exciting changes that got done this session. So next slide. All right, so jumping over to the House. Again, a lot of bills. I'll try not to touch on all of these because I know we're going a little long here. House Bill 48 was a red tape reduction bill that was trying to lessen the burden on districts and in particular teachers. And so it makes some changes to things like required training and moving those to every 4 years. Districts can do them more frequently, but they don't have to now. Again, trying to look at all of the reporting requirements that are coming from districts and seeing what we can potentially modify or change or get rid of. So it directs us here at the department to put a list together of all of the things that the reports that districts send in. I'm sitting here looking at a very large spreadsheet of those right now. So we'll be working on getting that ready to submit to the General Assembly this fall. Probably we'll see some action on that next session if I had to guess. 170 or House Bill 73 changes the percentage of retired teachers that a district can have from 3% to 10%. So again, kind of more workforce bills and trying to address the workforce shortage that we have. 132 was a bit of a repeat bill. We've seen a few bills on home and hospital instruction the past few years. This just allows for students to receive services on day one. House Bill 190 started out as a mandate in pushing districts to get more students enrolled in advanced educational opportunities. It became permissive along the way, so now it's encouraging districts to promote these advanced course opportunities. House Bill 193 was one that I was excited to see get done because this is one of the first bills I ever worked on in Frankfurt. This combines our dual credit scholarship with the Work Ready Kentucky dual credit scholarship. So now we will just have a dual credit scholarship for high school students. Then we will have the Work Ready Kentucky scholarship for adults that do not have an associate's degree yet. So that's all it does. It just merges them. It should make things a lot easier for those that are advising students and as well as students and their families to understand what dual credit scholarships are available and how to maximize those to achieve whatever goals they have. So, and just as I will note that KIA administers all of the dual credits, all the scholarships. So even though we mentioned a lot of the scholarship bills for awareness, if you have really in-depth questions, those would have to go to KIA. Let's see here. So 208 was another one, another big bill. This is one we were expecting. This was the quote unquote cell phone ban bill. So it directs districts come up with a policy to prohibit student telecommunication device use during the school day, as well as social media access. So we've gotten a few questions on the social media part. It does not pertain to staff. And it does allow for teachers to direct students to use online resources that might be on a social media platform that's accessible and that's acceptable. But please just be aware of that one. That's definitely one you want to go take a look at and read the guidance on if you're a classroom teacher. House Bill 240 is the holdback bill from this year. So this bill allows for students to be held back at the kindergarten level if they are not on grade level at the end of the year. It requires students to be held back at the end of first grade if they are not on grade level at the end of the year. So a big change there. Again, a lot of the focus is on the early learning before grade 3. I think we've talked about the benchmarks at the 3rd grade level a lot the past few years, and I think that's why we're seeing some of these bills related to the early learning. So House Bill 241 might have been the biggest bill, both in scope and size. So again, we have a 2-for-1 here. So the House Bill 241 initially started out as the disaster relief bill for districts. This was absolutely necessary for districts. We've had some very strange and very disruptive weather patterns the past year or two, and we continue to see those happen. So this bill, the first half of this bill granted some changes to the school district's calendars that were impacted by severe weather, allowed for the waiving of some days, granted the commissioner the authority to grant some additional days, to waive some additional days in certain circumstances. So that was all fantastic and very much needed. The second half of the bill was Senate Bill 268 that got rolled in. So the second half of this bill addresses non-resident virtual program, full-time non-resident virtual programs. So we've had one program in the district that has grown exponentially over the past few years. Their online virtual program has grown exponentially over the past few years, something like 200 in-person students versus more than 2,000 in the online program. That's sort of what drove this conversation about virtual programs. 241, at the end of the day, enacts a potential cap on non-resident, full-time non-resident virtual enrollment at 1% of the prior year's statewide total enrollment. As we get close to that cap and hit, I think, 0.85%, the department has to notify districts. Districts then have to freeze enrollment in non-resident enrollment in these full-time virtual programs, except for siblings of current enrolled students in the virtual program, military dependent students, and students that have a physician's note stating that they need that full-time virtual program for some medical reason. So there's some other parts to it, but that's the really high level. We are working here at the district to figure out how we'll monitor this and alert districts and kind of keep everything rolling along. But it makes some really big changes that we're going to work to implement as we move forward. So if you happen to be in a virtual program, that's definitely one to take a look at. So 263 relates to teacher scholarships, a very small change. It just allows that a student teacher that is otherwise eligible but is doing their student teaching outside of Kentucky is eligible for the stipend. House Bill 298 moves us back to annual identification of CSI. So more than 3 years ago, I think we moved to identification every 3 years. Our Office of Continuous Improvement and Support had been identifying districts that would have been otherwise identified as CSI and letting them know that they were kind of on this, they would have been on the list and offering services. Didn't get a lot of response. I think that's why we're going back to identification now. So that will start this year. All right, next slide. So House Bill 342, starting with this year's incoming freshmen, 9th graders. will require them to have a 1-credit financial literacy class for graduation. So I'm trying to jump around here. The rest of these, I don't think have a lot of impact directly on teachers, so I'll stop there. Are there any questions on any of the bills that I've talked about so far, or bills that I haven't mentioned? If not, we'll go to the next slide.
Dr. Perry, I've got a question on House Bill 193 about the dual credit scholarships.
Sure, I can try to answer it.
The work ready is the one that I'm most concerned. I'm a career technical ed welding instructor.
Sure.
So most of all of our students in the area technology centers, we utilize those work ready scholarships. Then they get the additional dual credit scholarships at the high school. Is that going to affect their capability of reducing the amount of scholarships overall?
No, it should not have any change on the number of scholarships available to students, either in CTE pathways or in non-CTE pathways.
Okay, because right now they're limited to 2 work-ready scholarships per year and 2 dual credit scholarships per year.
Yeah, and that basically will stay the same. They'll have 2 CTE dual credit scholars. Like they can take 2 CTE courses per year with dual credit. And then I think starting in your junior and senior year, it's the general courses become available. So I don't think you can use the dual credit scholarship for general courses when you're freshman and sophomore year. I think you have to wait till you're junior and senior, but I have to double check. But it should keep everything the same. It just merges it into 1 scholarship. So going forward, it's a little less confusing, hopefully. So.
All right, thank you.
Oh, sure.
I had a question about the cell phone / social media bill. So I had a colleague who she's also a cheer coach, and she shares contact information with her students so that they can get into the gym and they know how to start practice and all of those things. Could you clarify with me on like the absolute restrictions? I've also had other people reach out to me about, like, I have an in-law who has a kid at a school. They're not a blood relative.
So there are some exceptions. And I think the bill does allow for parents to submit a consent form, I think for anybody in the school system to communicate with their child. So there's that option. There have been a lot of questions, in particular, one that didn't come up during debate on this bill that I was aware of, that I heard anybody mention, was the teachers that are volunteers in some capacity in their communities. You know, the one that keeps coming up is like a scout leader or a youth group leader at a church that then has students of the district participating in this outside of school. So I think right now what we're saying is that the way the bill is written, that you would still have to require permission to have like a text to group chat with your scout group or whatever, if you had district students as a part of that group. I do think that the General Assembly has already heard some of these concerns. So I think it's highly likely that we will see a cleanup bill for 208 to address some of these concerns and make it a little clearer. But in the meantime, we do have our guidance out that I think addresses some of those questions. So I will point back to that for right now. So if you haven't looked at the guidance document, please do that first. If you look at the guidance document and you still have questions, please send those to me. My contact will be here at the end because we will be talking about this bill a lot, I think, as we move through the interim and talk about some of the concerns that are out there, or just some of the things that need clarity, and whether that's through a reg or additional action at the General Assembly level. It'll help us kind of know which direction we need to head in.
Okay. I mean, yeah, because you can talk about those youth groups. You can talk about the fact that teachers don't get paid enough, so we have to have second jobs where high school kids are often employed. We have to have summer jobs at camps. We have to do these things that are required of us. You can also talk about just this being a betrayal of trust and another attempt to delegitimize educators and to attack educators. But I'm sure that you guys have already mentioned that part. So.
Any other questions on any of the bills or bills I didn't mention that you've heard something about? This is the full list of bills that passed that are from this session that passed. that have an impact on education. So if you've heard about another bill that's not on this list, it likely was something that was moving at some point but did not make it across the finish line. All right, I have a couple more slides that I'll just quickly talk about. I can go to the next one. So we have now entered into what's known as the interim period. This is the period that runs from June into November. So during this time, we have interim joint meetings. So the Senate and House Education Committees, the Senate and House Appropriation Revenue Committees meet, as well as other committees. Those are the two that probably have the most impact on education. So these are things that you may want to pay attention to and tune into. The agendas are released 2 weeks ahead of time generally. So you can see the IJCE and the ANR committee meetings dates there and times. They're all broadcast on KET or on the LRC YouTube site. So I would encourage you, if you have an interest in the legislative side of this, to tune in. For example, Commissioner Fletcher and Dr. Stafford presented on Framework 4.0 at the very first IJCE. I'm sure there'll be more conversations about that as we move through as well. So, and again, really tag ANR as we head into a budget session. So you may want to tune in to some of these committee meetings. Next slide. I think about next to last one. So I usually get asked kind of what's on the radar for next session. Obviously, it's a budget session. So that will be forefront of everybody's mind. Framework 4.0 and kind of where that goes will be one of the top priorities for the department. We also saw Senator Higdon introduce Senate Bill 253 this session. So back in November, the KWIB made a relatively large change and added education as one of the top 5 demand sectors for the state. The top 5 demand sectors are what are eligible for the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. We had a lot of conversations with Senator Higdon, folks from KIA and other agencies, because the Work Ready Scholarship is designed for essentially workforce pathways that end in a terminal associate's degree, applied associate's degree. So your CTE fields, essentially. Education doesn't have a sub-baccalaureate option that leads to a certified teaching position. So it's not a great fit. So what 253 proposed was expanding the number of dual credit scholarships available for students in the teaching and learning pathway in high school, and then kind of transferring them immediately into an EPP where the existing teacher scholarship would then kick in, thereby setting up a potential pathway for a student to get a bachelor's degree in education, having paid no tuition along the way. So pretty exciting change. Didn't get a lot of traction this session, but that's not unusual. Senator Higdon has already indicated his interest in refiling this bill. So we will be working this interim kind of to educate members on this potential possibility. I don't know if there will be some circling back to talk more about adding education as a pathway for the Work Ready Scholarship, but either way, I think we're going to be talking about teacher scholarships and how to improve that process. So there is an existing scholarship available for teachers. It's funded at $2 million a year, but it is a conversion scholarship. So lots of things in play there, but I thought you all would want to hear that that's something that's being talked about. Then, as I mentioned, we heard a lot about virtual programs this session, in particular, strengthening the regulations around NTI. So a lot of concerns about NTI, just kind of generally speaking. Our folks have already started sort of the process of looking at our virtual program regulations and kind of how we mimic those in the NTI world and kind of strengthening it there. But I also think we'll see the legislature continue to discuss virtual programs. Won't be surprised at all if this is a conversation that you see on one of the interim joint calendars at some point. So I'm sure there'll be lots more in a full budget session, but those are the things that are on the radar right now. So with that, I think my last slide just has my contact information. So if you ever need anything or have any questions related to the legislature or bills that you've heard are moving or are curious about, please feel free to reach out. As you see, I spend my whole time here talking about all this stuff, so always happy to chat about it. So the final thing is, as you look at the bills that are going into effect, if you have any questions, whether it's on 208 or others, please do send those questions in to me. It'll help us know if we need to do additional guidance on anything, or if there are certain bills that we really need to start thinking about asking for some cleanup language around. So with that, there's any final questions, I'll be happy to take them. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So that brings us to our adjournment slide. So as you can see there, our future meetings are September 10th, December 12th, March 18th, and June 17th for this upcoming year's TAC meetings. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
This is Wendy Young. I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Carla Criswell, second.
Thank you. And all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. You all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.